so bad.
Can we just stay here for an hour and just dance?
To that awful, awful elevator music. Yes. Let's do that. I feel like it would lift. I feel like the world needs a collective dance party right now.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. Anyway, hello everybody. Good to see you all. Thank you, just in case, friend, for the membership at Kate's channel. That's nice.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And guys, if you are not a subscriber, the way to collect that is just to say a quick hi in the chat, and then it will set you up with a subscription. So thank you to Just In Case Friend for doing that. And also, if you could just hit the thumb and the heart and the whatever wherever you're watching, whether it's on YouTube or Rumble or wherever.
Yes. And I see you there, Alexandra and Molly in YouTube. Good to see you guys.
Hello, guys.
So today we don't have a guest
Right.
because, well, we didn't. And actually, if anybody is willing to come on and tell your story about your dark night of the soul, feel free to contact one of us and it will be arranged. Anyway, today we're going to talk about.
Well, today we were kind of discussing the collective dark night of the soul that the world is going through right now, and in particular this community. And we've had a lot of loss recently, and these things tend to push people collectively into a dark night of the soul, which can be, it's difficult because you there's no one really to lean on because everybody's feeling a little bit wobbly.
Absolutely. I think, the whole Charlie Kirk thing, obviously, well, the left right, it's not a left right battle anymore. It's a spiritual battle, right? It's always been a spiritual battle, in my opinion. It's just that now, I mean, it's so divided everywhere. Everybody goes through a massive dark night of the soul. I do believe that as well.
Right.
And
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
well, yeah, it all depends, right? Because I like in the past months, I've been really not on X or online. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to check it. And then Charlie Kirk died, and for some reason, I got sucked back in, and I see the divisions everywhere, and it's more than ever before. I do think there's a collective grieving, and not per se about Charlie Kirk alone, but I guess about how the world was once. Not that it was so much better. It needed to be different, right? That broken house that we talked about last week. I mean, we're just patching it up, and eventually it needs to be burned down, which I think where we're heading, or we are already, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, we saw the ugliness of the division, that it's no longer just like, I'm going to call you names because I have a difference of opinion. Now it's like there are people that want you dead for
Yes,
having a difference of opinion, and they aren't hiding it anymore. They are
right.
full blown out in the open. And that is traumatic in and of itself, to find out that it's not just about division and bickering and not being able to get on the same side. We live among people who are absolutely projecting darkness in, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore. So in a
Right.
way, in a way, it's kind of like the dark night of the soul for me. I always said there was this low-key depression and anxiety that I always had until I actually found out that the darkness was real. And then it was like I could cope with it and I could heal and I could move on. But before confronting it and knowing it, then it was almost like your subconscious knows it anyway. You something's not right in the world, and you know that evil exists kind of, but you ignore it. And so there's this depression that seeps in.
Right.
And so it was like, as soon as I actually saw true darkness and was able to admit that it was real, then the healing could begin. So
Yeah.
now it's not like the death of Charlie Kirk made these people that way. They've obviously already been that way, and now they feel comfortable expressing it, or now they are coming out expressing it. And I mean, as ugly as it is, you want people to, I don't like anything that stays hidden. I want to know
No.
what people think and believe so that it can be dealt with, instead of them pretending like, oh, let's all get along, and secretly I want you dead. And I'm going to be your doctor. I'm going to teach your children. These people were in very high up in, high levels of institutions that most people rely on.
Yeah, that's the most disturbing part. These people are absolutely psychotic. But at the same time, I'm thinking, right? Because obviously they are like absolutely evil in their heads. But at the same time, I'm also thinking, because of the internet, where people are behind a keyboard, where it's so easy to say things, even if you don't mean them, although I do believe a lot of people do mean it, and actually do think that way. But at the same time, it is amplified by people who use words just because they say, well, it's just words, right? And so it becomes so much bigger and it becomes so much exaggerated at the same time, where we don't even know like who means it and who's just using words because they're behind a keyboard, right? And but at the same time, all of that together amplifies, the division, the hate, the anger, the grief, everything. And that's what I'm observing, because even I do fall for it at times. I get really triggered about something and I just blurt something out because I can, because I'm behind a keyboard. But it
Because you're
doesn't.
Dutch, let's face it.
Well, yeah, that too. But even
Partially.
because I'm, I can, because it's just words, I can say them.
Mm,
But would I do the same in real life? No, I
mm.
wouldn't. But a lot of these people actually do that, because you see it in videos where they, for example, destroy a whole memorial from Charlie Kirk. And I'm like, this is so psychotic
Yeah.
that, you know, I can't even fathom what's going on in these. Are they collectively like in a psychosis?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think there's a lot of collective psychosis. I think there's a lot of collective wounds on, no matter who you are, everybody is dealing with that, and then it's just getting more and more pronounced. So how people deal with it or not deal with it is getting more and more obvious. And so
Right.
I think it kind of comes back to what we've been talking about, what I've been talking about the last couple weeks, which is this trauma that um, I believe is at least the majority partially due to the trauma that people have sustained. And then you also have things like, the element of just dehumanizing people and taking away the dignity of being a human being, and kind of blurring lines, and just that's kind of the slow boil part of it. But the trauma, I think, is the real true catalyst as to what can make somebody completely lose their humanity towards
Right.
their fellow man, whether you disagree or not. And then you have all of the conditioning on top of that, that's like, uh, basically convincing these people that certain people are Hitler or Nazis or the devil. I mean, listen, we have to be careful on both sides of this, because
Yeah.
I see it on the other side too, being like, this person is demonic. They're literally doing that to Erica Kirk right now.
Right.
This is what I've been seeing on X today.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you, I came across two tweets from two completely separate pastors. One of
Yes.
them was a video of Erica Kirk with the song Devil Woman playing, and then like showing things that make her eyes look like they are slits or whatever. If you don't understand at this point how cameras work, and that some of that at least is due to the frame rates of cameras,
Right.
But they're calling her demonic. Then I saw another pastor saying that he received a message from God that let him know that she is demonic. I'm seeing people pick apart the whatever they just had for him yesterday. What did they call it? Was it
A memorial.
a memorial? Okay. Um you know, all these satanic references. When she made the I love you sign with her hand, they're
Right.
saying
Yeah.
that's really the sign of the devil somehow, and that hallelujah is actually saying praise Lucifer. And like, so people lose their heads on both sides
Right.
by just being too um brazen about their accusations.
Right.
Like, let's confront what actually happens. Let's confront what people's fruits are. Let's have discussions about that. But when we start pointing fingers, you're Hitler, you're a Nazi, you're a this, like, how about tell me what I said? Tell me what I did. What don't you like about those things that Charlie
Right.
Kirk did and said? Because every time they try to paint Charlie Kirk that way, they have to put words in his mouth that he didn't say.
Right. Well, yeah, and on the bright side, and I love that. Thank you, Claudette, for mentioning that. She said, my 34-year-old son, who I never thought would wake up, is waking up. He was a devout CNN watcher, Trump hater, and he sees the lies now. So this is another side of the spectrum that I see happening en masse, like people absolutely being disgusted with those people that attack either Erica or or Charlie, and they all start to come towards the middle or to the other side, because I don't believe in left or right anymore at this point. I mean, this is literally a spiritual battle. Because I'm thinking sometimes, I'm a cat sitter, and I do this like literally every day for people, and these people come in my house. I couldn't tell you whether they're left or right,
Right.
and they're nice, right? So as soon as you start talking probably politics, which I obviously don't, but as soon as you would do that, I mean, some sort of a demon comes out of them, right? I'm
Mm.
not saying out of these people, but it could be because all of a sudden something triggers in them that makes them absolutely vile. And so, but they can be normal people when you encounter them in the supermarket or in your house or wherever, right? So there is something absolutely weird going on. And on the other side, Claudette pointing this out, is all these people going towards the other side actually waking up even more. And I do think that everything needs to be broken down in order to be rebuilt up. And I do think we're right in the middle of a storm right now,
Mm.
where things are breaking off and people holding on for dear life, and other people saying, you know what, I'm just going to hide over there because it's safer over there right now. And you know I don't know if that's a good metaphor for it, but
Well, yeah, you made me think of something, because as you're talking about these people that come into your home and you don't know whether they're left or right, it doesn't matter. I mean, I have that same thing in my life. I happen to know some of my friends that lean left, or they might be full blown all the way left. And they're lovely, amazing people. They're good friends. They're great mothers and fathers. They are active in the community. They're good to other people's children. They're good role models. And then when it comes to this, um, we conflict, right?
right,
But it doesn't matter to me that they believe that, because I see their character. I see them as human beings. And as you were talking, it just kind of struck me that both sides, you obviously have like the Antifa people, who I don't think they have any values or ethics. I think they're
right,
there literally just to cause trouble.
right,
But if you look at it, both sides think and truly believe that they are fighting evil, that the
right. Yes,
people that they are going up against are evil, either Hitler and Nazis, or demonic and, not Christian enough. And they're
right,
like, oh, I see the devil in you. So that's what you're seeing. It's like, okay, we can talk about issues. We can talk about less taxes, more taxes. That's not going to ruffle people's feathers. What
No.
does it is that they feel righteous in it, is that they don't see a human being. They see evil
Yes.
that they are fighting. And so, I've never been really a fan of the middle of the road, because I always was brought up thinking, okay, there's right and there's wrong. So to say, well, I'm just
Oh,
always
yeah.
going to take the middle path is the coward's way out, because there is
True.
right and there is wrong. But I
Well, yeah,
understand.
depending which perspective, obviously, when it comes politics, left, right, I'd
Yeah.
rather go the middle, because coming from that perspective that you're talking about, right, that these people can be lovely until, right,
Well,
until,
exactly. I mean, listen, I agree with you in that it's not like there's evil on both sides. There's
right,
evil on right, there's evil on left. I disagree in that I do think that the ideologies are not equal. I think that there is one that leads more towards um uh basically human slavery, and then another that
true,
leans more towards freedoms. And so I don't think the ideologies are equal, but I do think that there are good people on both sides. To take a quote from, I mean, that's a great example as well. Look how many people were convinced that Trump was a racist because
right,
the media kept playing that there's a good people on both sides clip without giving them the full picture, which was 19 seconds later, actually. 19 seconds later, he says, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and white supremacists because they should be condemned fully, but there are good people on both sides. He was talking about the people that were there protesting this statue, okay? And there are
right,
good people on the left, there are good people on the right. There are evil people on the left. Well, I don't even like I'm starting to get less and less comfortable with saying that people are evil or not evil. I think
right,
actions are evil, and anybody is capable of evil actions. I see people that are good people do evil stuff all the time. And it's interesting how, like, the results of being either a coward or evil can be the
right.
same. Like, or ego, greed, right? These things can,
Well, this is the interesting part. I think every aspect of human beings are coming out to the surface to play
yeah,
right now, like literally. And on every side, there is no left, right, really, when it comes down to it. There's good and bad, and that's how I see it as well.
yeah,
But the bad is in everybody, in every one of us, right? Depending when you talk about what, right? So um, I do believe as soon as we have somebody that is a Democrat in front of you, they're going to get triggered by you. You're going to be triggered by them. And that's when evil comes out on both sides as well. And ego is another big one that I think that one is now going rampant. But it's like the pendulum again, it goes back and forth, back and forth. We're now at the opposite spectrums of this pendulum. And eventually it has to just start moving slower and starting to go more in sync, because yeah, I don't believe that anybody is, well, per definition, evil, although obviously there are people that are, but the majority isn't evil, even
yeah,
on what we call the left.
right. Rambo, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the subscriptions. How are you feeling? That's number one thing I want to say. Number two, Patricia, where you're sitting with the pictures behind your head, you look like you have cat ears. Like, it's really cute. Like when
Oh, I
I
see it. It's
it's so
actually
cute. It's like your aura manifestation, your cat self is coming to the surface. So I just want to clarify that I'm not saying that there isn't evil. I do think that there's evil and that we need to fight evil. I think that we just have to be very careful, because if everything is evil, if everything is satanic, then nothing is
right,
satanic. It's kind of like going out in the world and calling everyone a pedophile, even if
right,
you don't know. If you don't know that somebody is a pedophile, I don't care how suspicious you are. I don't care what things look like. This is why we have innocent until proven guilty in this country. If you think that there is reason to believe that, then you should absolutely push for the proper system to be in place, and that, whatever. But if you go out in the world and you start calling everyone a pedophile, actually what you're doing is creating cover for pedophiles, because then
Right.
everyone's like, well, if everyone's a pedophile, I'm just going to blend in here and we're all getting called pedophiles. But, so we can't also go out and call everybody evil or demon possessed or demonic or any of this stuff. It's it takes a lot for us to learn how to measure ourselves, to measure our words. And I was more like you also, or not like you, but like you were saying, like sometimes you can get, into that with your words. Like you can say whatever comes out of your mouth because they're just words.
Right.
And I was always really like that. I was just talking to my mom about this the other day because um my family, actually just the women in my family, my mom, my sister, and I all have very cutting humor.
Right.
We have very cutting humor. Like our senses of humor are very dark at times. And I mean, I could speak for my mom and my sister. They're two of the funniest people that I know in life. And so I was like, God, isn't it such a shame? Because it's such a skill, but it's a skill that I had to learn to unlearn because it
Right.
doesn't serve anything. And when I started being more measured with my words, what it took actually was being on the other side of that, being
Right.
attacked for no reason. For the same thing, like, okay, you've got videos now of these knuckleheads picking apart this memorial for Charlie Kirk. Oh, do you see the square within the square and how that makes a
Yeah.
six and how she did this with her hand and that's 666. And so this is demonic and da 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 da. Well, nothing will make you, if you're one of those people that thinks that way, nothing will make you shape up faster than having somebody go through your shit and then start
Right.
accusing you of stuff that is not even remotely true just because you wore red shoes one time or
Right.
somebody caught you making a hand gesture or you took a picture with someone, whatever it is. Once people start picking you apart, then that makes people realize how stupid and irresponsible it is.
Absolutely. And, I love our chat actually today. I just want to point this one out first. Service to self or service to others. That's exactly what it's about. It's just that at the moment, I do believe some people take service to others to a different level, which becomes then service to self, because they stand for, I don't know, a party or a belief, an idea, or for a group of people, and they take it to another level where it becomes really aggressive. So I do think, yeah, the pendulum is swinging like crazy. And another one that I found really interesting, thank you for pointing this out, Texan, is, does fear play into this behavior? Are people so scared that they lash out? I think that's exactly what's going on right now. There's a lot of fear because we literally don't know where we stand in the world right now. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're in the US, you're in Europe, or anywhere in the world, really. We all encounter the same adversities, the same things, right? Whether it's in your country, it's Charlie Kirk. In England, it's like being overrun by freaking Muslims to the point that it become like literally sword fights on the street. I mean, insane. We just had this week as well in our country, loads of fights where Antifa infiltrated and started. It was actually a peaceful protest against migration, and it was infiltrated by Antifa only to wind up in burning cars, and it was mayhem. So I do believe that people are lashing out also out of fear, and that a lot of the evil is also infiltrated within every single group. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle. Um, but yeah,
Well,
thank you for that.
I mean, hatred comes from fear. Everything that all of our negative jealousy, hatred, all of our baser negative traits as human being are a derivative of fear.
Right.
Jealousy is the fear of there not being enough. So you think somebody else has too much, you think you're lacking, and it's almost a preservation mechanism. It's
Yeah.
survival. That's where that comes from. And so when you have people living in fear, it does make people hate others who don't think like them or look different or act different or whatever, because that is their fear telling them that there is some kind of warning there. And so to get people operating from fear is never a good idea. Like I've
Right.
talked about this a lot. There is no, you can't do the wrong things for the right reasons ever. Things
No.
are wrong if they're wrong, if they're wrong, and then they are always wrong. And there is never a
Yeah.
time in which it's okay to do the wrong thing for the right reason. So the same way, that we could call it the deep state keeps us living in fear in order to keep us in control. Well, look at the other fear, anything that is supplying us with fear, like even talking about how this is a spiritual war to people who are afraid now that there are demons inhabiting people's bodies in the world around them. And so that is a very fearful thing. That's very scary. But
Yeah.
even in the Bible, it says 365 times, do not be afraid, or some kind of version of that. I can tell you that my belief is that, yeah, evil exists, and it's ugly, and it's decrepit, and it's disgusting, and it's dark, but we don't have to be afraid of it.
Right.
To we can stand up, we can do the right thing, we can fight back without having to be afraid of it. In fact, I never want to contribute to the fear mechanisms. And when I talk
Right.
about the spiritual war, I don't want people to be hiding under their beds thinking that demons are going to come into their room and, lift them up against the wall. I can tell you, you can survive shit like that. It's not
Yeah.
to be afraid of.
Yes.
In fact, demonic energy is going to use your fear against you. And the way to get
Yes.
it to go away is to not be in fear, to connect yourself to the light is always going to win. And when you
Right.
are plugged into the light, when you're focused on the light, it's not to say that you can't be wounded. It's not to say that bad things can't happen to you. But ultimately, what are we afraid of? Are we afraid of dying? Because we're all going to die eventually. That's the only given we have. Like we are, we're being controlled by that fear, and it has the opposite effect on us. We think it's going to protect us, and actually it is not
Yes.
protecting us. It's
Oh,
harming us.
I definitely encountered this, and I can tell you, I know what it is to have demons around you, and the only way to get out of them and to get away from them is indeed um, not giving them any power, because that's what I did. I was so afraid of it so badly that I thought, no, I'm going to fight it back. But the more I fought back with fear, the worse it became. And like sunlight is the best disinfectant. And so I decided to actually have positive thoughts. And obviously, at first, it started very frantically, but then I was like, no, I'm not giving it any power. And so, if I'm just relaxing and just stay in my positive thought patterns and seeing even, positive things during the day, whatever, it would dissipate slowly. But before, you spiral down in that dark hole once you start believing in these demons having control over you. And then, because they say, oh, that person has demons. Well, it's literally that way. It can be literally that way, right?
I mean, I think I believe in that. I think less and less that demon possession is something that is like the movie The Exorcist, and it's
Yeah.
more like these things that whisper in our ears. And I don't think they take control over us. I think that they influence us. And but again, that's just a belief based on my own experiences and based on whatever things I've read. And I could be wrong about that, but either way, um, nothing bad comes from not living in fear. Like
Right.
if you're never going to regret not being scared. Man, I wish I could go back and do it all over again so I could be more afraid.
Yes, yes, because I love it so much. Well, there are people that actually get a kick out of it, but then, they dance with the devil, I would say, in a sense, right? But if you are able to do that, then it won't touch you either. And so I do believe there is a mass attack of, entities, demons, whatever you want to call it, on people because of fear. Um, and also that on all sides of the aisle, it doesn't matter, right? And I do think there is a collective fear going on. There's you were talking about greed, about ego, jealousy, all that stuff. I think that is like at an all-time high. All the seven sins, don't they call it the seven sins?
Sorry. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. Greed,
eight,
greed.
eight, seven deadly. Yeah, seven deadly sins.
Right.
Greed, gluttony, lust, wrath.
Right.
Somebody's gonna get it. I know for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, these are now at an all-time high. You can see them coming out of every angle, every corner. And I do believe that is because it needs to come out in order to eventually all balance out. Because, that's always how things go. And whoever survives, survives. And who doesn't, well, they don't. But
Well, it's like the fish tank analogy that we were talking about last week. In order to clean things out, it's not like those things didn't exist. Those
yes,
things exist whether they're being exposed or not. So when it's brought to the surface, then you know the consequences of those things tend to keep us in line. Societally, when you are, part of the reason that free speech is important isn't so that we can all say, rah, rah, we all agree. It's because if somebody does have dangerous beliefs, or if they are evil to their core and want to harm people because they look different or act different or whatever, I want those people to talk. I want to know what's in their heart. Because if
right,
they want to be my son's pediatrician or his baseball coach or, whatever. So honesty, truth, honesty, transparency, the light shed on these things, you know, it's not so that we can all be in lockstep. But if everyone hates you because of, I don't know, I think it forces us to reconcile what it is that we think and believe. If you can't defend your beliefs, if it really is just coming from hatred and there's
right,
no defense of it, that's when people just start getting even angrier.
right.
Nobody is more hostile than somebody who can't defend their point. Then you're going to start seeing nastiness and hostility.
True. And I saw somebody, I wonder, if this is true, because there's so many people that are vaccinated, and I wonder if there's something to that, because I just saw recently a video about how it destroys the pineal gland. Now, I don't know if that's true. I haven't been vaccinated. I wouldn't know. And even if I would be vaccinated, I probably wouldn't know because, I would be in denial. So, but I do see what struck me to me, and not everybody, but a lot of people that are vaccinated, for example, it seems like a lot of empathy is gone, and they're way more angry, and at the same time they're something is missing.
Well, I mean, I think that's just the boogeyman du jour. And certainly I think there's something to it but I think it's in everything. The
Right,
poisonous food and poisonous air and poisonous water and the things that we're watching and the things that we're listening to. All of these things that we are consuming have a particular vibration. Of course, a vaccine that we are taking that's full of heavy metals and all kinds of who knows what is going to
right,
have its own vibration as well. It will have an effect. So I think it kind of goes back to bucket theory and just how poisoned we've been, all the toxicity that we have in our minds and our bodies, and it will have an effect on us physically. And physical things are connected intrinsically to the brain. You can't have a healthy brain with an unhealthy body, and vice versa.
true,
Everything is intrinsically connected. And so, I mean, even our energy field around us, and that's not woo woo, that's science.
yeah,
Everything has a vibration. You take two tuning forks that are tuned at different frequencies and you put them near each other, they're going to have an effect on one another.
right.
So, I do think that there's something to that. But I also, again, I don't like putting fear into people lots of people got vaccinated and regret it, they
Right.
didn't.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as well, but I do think, and I don't think it's good to constantly mention, because I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, you shouldn't have been that dumb," and I'm like, everybody can make mistakes, and everybody can wake up to it. And what then? Are they too late and they're going to die? No, I do think that our minds are so powerful that if it's the same like that book from Dr. Joe Dispenza, where I read about the placebo effect,
Mhm.
you know, where they said to the man, like, oh, you have 6 months to live because you have kind of cancer. And then after 6 months, the man dies and turns out he never had cancer. So that's how freaking strong it is, you know, and I think this is also why a lot of doctors do this. You know, they always tell you you're sick, and then you're going to believe you're sick. And maybe you are sick, but it doesn't mean that your brain cannot actually transmute that in a way. I do believe that is possible. And the same for the people that are vaccinated can also, I mean, saying it like this simple, like you can think your way out of it. Well, it's not about thinking, it's about your mindset, right? I do believe that makes a big difference. Um, but
Well,
yeah, it's tricky, right? Because I don't want to put fear in people that have been vaccinated, because I do think that people can get restored from that, just like with the poisoned food. You know, we can restore ourselves from that.
yeah, it's not like mind over matter as far as our consciousness, like willing ourselves to no longer be sick. But our
Right.
subconscious mind absolutely does have control. I mean, you can, through hypnosis alone, not only anesthetize somebody going into invasive surgery, but you can also control the bleeding to that area. That
Yeah.
is the mind. That is the power of the mind. The subconscious mind can create illness and disease, and it can also heal them, because the subconscious mind is doing things like, there are things going on in our body that we don't consciously have to think of. We're not thinking about breathing. We're not thinking about beating our heart. We're not thinking about lubricating our eyes or our mouths or whatever. Those things are automatic, but they are coming from the subconscious. The subconscious is kind of is controlling the body. And
Right.
so um there are things that we can do to aid it physically, but also there is a lot to be said about the placebo effect, and constantly telling people, getting them focused, like everywhere we go now, everything we do. I don't care if it's a little league game, or you go to see a movie, or you're driving down the street and you see billboards, everything is cancer, 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 cancer
Right.
everywhere.
Right.
And
It is. I mean, what if even the turbo cancer idea comes just from planting the idea,
mm,
and people going to get it? Because, you know, here's a theory I have. Remember that period of time where still people doing that, like eating the sun, just eat, like sun gazing,
oh,
and they don't have to eat, and
oh
they,
yes.
yeah, so they go like what, a month, 2 months, 3 months without eating and
Mhm.
just sun gazing. And then I thought, okay, so now somebody gets lost in the Grand Canyon without food
Mm.
and without water, and yet they die within a few days.
Because it's a vibrational thing. You can't just
Exactly.
go out and do it. Your body has to be tuned to that frequency. I mean, that's an interesting rabbit hole, because when you go back, if you ever do the dig into Tartaria and the mud floods and all of these palaces that seem to exist before, we can't replicate these things. We can't make these things today.
No.
And somehow we were living with dirt roads, wearing, linen pettifours, and, not even like functional shoes, but yet we were able to build things, like these huge cathedrals. But so the idea of it was that there was a civilization that lived previously to us that was more technologically advanced. And the interesting thing is that all of these buildings, the intricate, the ornate details, the fact that they are built um, perf- perfect, they're
Yeah.
perfect, like they are frequencies in and of themselves, like they resonate sound ways, in ways that we can't build buildings today that do this. So they are structurally perfect, and none of them have bathrooms. So what is that about? And so the
They don't
idea,
have bathrooms.
they
I
don't have
didn't know that
bathrooms.
one.
No, none of them have bathrooms. So they have everything. And they had running water in ancient Greece or whatever, Rome,
Right.
whatever it was. I
Rome.
mean, so things, why didn't they were building these absolutely incredible, intricate buildings, but they didn't have bathrooms. And so one of the interesting theories is that the civilization that built that, and I'm not saying they weren't human, I actually think they were human. This was our history. They did not eat food. They lived off of the ether. And if you'll
Right.
remember, the ether was something that Nikola Tesla talked about all the time. They erased it as one of the elements. You know, there was
Right.
water, fire. I'm going to get water, fire, air, ether,
Earth.
earth,
Yeah.
right? They say, no, 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 ether doesn't exist. But is it possible that we know that there are people that can sustain themselves, like monks and things like that, people that like go into caves and they don't take any food or water and they are able to live? Why is that? Are their bodies able, are they operating at a frequency that their bodies are able to extract nutrients or whatever the body needs from the ether, from the sunlight, like plants do, by the way?
Right.
Um, you
And then
know,
emit even more energy, like
exactly.
photons.
It's a battery. Exactly. It's
Right.
a battery. It's a cycle. You can't just go from eating a McDonald's hamburger to being like, I think I'll just eat air from now on. Like your body has to be in tune for it. If you think
Yeah.
about it, you are a product, you are what you eat. And that's not
Right.
just everything you put in your mouth, it's everything you watch, everything you focus on, everything that is coming into contact with you, the tuning forks coming up against each other. So I think there's a process of fasting and building up to it. And you know, by the way, people that are avid fasters, they have more energy when they're fasting. Not, and you
Yeah.
would think it would be the other way around. At first, you're tired because your body is
Yeah.
acclimating and it's getting used to it. But people that actually know how to fast and can do it for prolonged periods of time, they feel more energetic. They
Right.
feel, you know, happier, brighter. They function better than when they're
Yeah.
having sustenance.
Yes, I do have a friend who does it regularly, and then you've got like to day 4, and then they get a boost of energy, and they start working out and doing stuff while they haven't had food for 5 days, right? So that is, I mean, I seen it over and over again, and oh God,
Kitty cat.
yeah, they're breaking stuff.
Oh no.
Anyway, I've got 2 of them. But yeah, no, but I do believe that there was an advanced civilization, and that, eventually everything is also about money. I wonder when that time was, when the Tartarian ended, and then what we are now in came in to play, because literally everything, if it comes to food, it's all about money. Um, it's all about taking energy, even animals. I mean, people are like, oh, you're vegetarian and this and that, and I'm like, well, you eat that negative energy as well from these animals that have suffered.
Yes.
And I've been to a slaughterhouse when I was 11. I've never seen such terrified animals in my life. It was so horrible. And then I thought, and I'm a flexitarian, let's face it, I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it, but I do think about it. If there's one reason I wouldn't eat meat, it's because of this. It's
Well,
like the fear that goes into these animals. You eat that.
right. And there's a good there's a proper way to do it, right? I mean,
Right.
I'm not against the killing of animals, but I agree with
No.
you that their treatment and their death is reflected in the meat, in the vibration of the meat that you eat. You know,
Right.
all the whole system, all the way down the line, there are negative influences over that meat. Whereas if you're raising your own chickens, you're raising your own cows, they are let to live a natural, happy life outdoors in clean, a clean atmosphere. Then I absolutely believe in meat. I mean, I eat meat, I do, but I
Yeah.
also absolutely agree with what you're saying. That fear, that negativity, the hostility, all of that
Yes.
ugliness is going into the. I mean, but it's honestly, it's quite frankly, same thing with the fruits and vegetables that we're eating as well.
Yeah.
There might not be the fear element, but the chemicals and they're not being grown in natural sunlight. They're being grown under lamps, and they're being grown in soil that is depleted of nutrients. And so like
Yeah.
our entire food system is not uh good. But you
No.
you you said everything comes down to money, and exactly right. And I was saying about Nikola Tesla, he had discovered how to extract energy from the ether. And
Right.
so it wasn't just about um the JP Morgan was one of his um one of the people that financed him in the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
JP Morgan also owned the copper coils that went in the
In his
power lines.
in the tower as well.
Exactly. So it was more money for him to fund what's his face?
Rockefeller.
Edison. Edison.
Who- Oh, Edison. Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Who, was doing the I forgot what there's like the frequency, whatever. Anyway, Nikola Tesla found a way to extract energy from the ether, and then he was destroyed for it, because that would have changed humanity. For people to
Yes.
have free energy, free power, it's not just about your lighting bill, and it's not just about, it is everything. It has a trickle down effect on everything. That is what keeps people slaves to the system.
Yes. Well, the same how in that same period they closed all the holistic schools, and and then because medicine came from plants, and
Right.
so now they come from a lab because they're synthetic. Because you can manipulate it, you can drug the masses, but you can also make a lot of money on it. And yeah, it's the same game, and that's for everything. And I think now we're at the precipice of, well, people being in fear because we see, is the dark winning or is the light winning? We don't know. And so then fear comes in, and then obviously dark is going to win, because if we're going to adhere to fear, then that's exactly what the dark wants. So if we start self-sustaining and helping ourselves, being more in a natural way and without fear, then the light will win, the good will win. And I think that's what we're in right now, is a battle. We've always been in it, but now it's so much clearer than ever before. It's so visible, that people are now in a mass panic at the same time. And I think very soon, it's going to be surrender, and not surrendering to, the dark, but rather surrendering to what can I do? What difference can I make in this world, that benefits everybody? And then we get service to others, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as long as we have to try our best to make an impact on the world while we're here, certainly.
Right.
But we also, I mean, if we are living in light ourselves and living by that example, then we shouldn't live in fear about what is going on in the external world. We can't take it with us anyway. We are all going to, get on the other side of this life, and whatever we did, we're not going to be responsible for whatever is happening, like in the world outside of us. But we can affect our own world, and we have this ripple effect by living in that vibration of light, about doing the right thing, staying focused on the light. And I think it's like, it is a deterrent for people when they don't feel powerful. They don't feel like they're having an effect on anything. That just
Right.
little old me, what can I do?
Yeah.
And it makes people not do the right thing. It makes
Well,
people
yeah,
think, well,
that's
what's the point?
because they're looking at somebody to lead them. And that's where the problem is to begin with, because how much we may like Trump, but at the end of the day, we have to lead ourselves, and trust in ourselves that we want the good, and then we're going to spread that as well. I do believe that absolutely eventually it comes down to that. It's not about being against one leader or another, but rather become leaders ourselves, for our own communities, for our own families, for
I think that's part of the reason why Charlie Kirk's death was so difficult for a lot of people. We're not given a whole lot of heroes, and I think that while people are here, we might not necessarily be looking at all of like the wonderful things that they're doing. Charlie Kirk to me was somebody who, I would come across his stuff sometimes on Twitter, and I followed just very loosely what he did. He wasn't like my hero. He wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be like that man. But of course, in death, people talk about all of the wonderful things you did, and people start to focus more on like, wow, the impact of this man in his life. And then people get really scared and afraid because it's like, oh my God, he was a leader and now he's gone. And
Well, I love this because this is what Erica said yesterday, and I was like blown away when she said that. She said, you know, Charlie had no unfinished business, but his work is not finished. And I was like, that is so brilliant. It means it's fine that he died in the sense that, his life came to an end, but it doesn't mean that his work came to an end. However, he did not have unfinished business. And I love the way that she said that, because that exactly illustrates that it's not about a leader, it's about being a leader yourself.
mm, I mean, exactly. In a way, having a leader that is alive in our time makes people not activate. They're like, well, he's got it. And, same thing with Trump. That's why I think it's really important that not only does Trump, he's not perfect and he does do
Yeah.
stuff that is like, no, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least he says it. And so, and I am always just really jazzed that people boo him when he says things that they don't agree with, and that people aren't treating, they're not treating him like he is um perfect and here to save us all. We cannot fall asleep. We cannot fall asleep just because we believe somebody else has it handled. I think we're getting the message time and time again. As soon as we get comfortable that other people have it handled, no.
Yes. Yes. And I think that is actually, maybe that's exactly why he does these things where I'm like lately, like, wait a minute, I do not agree with what he's doing here. What the actual, F.
Mhm.
And, but now I'm thinking, what if that is actually on purpose so that people start not relying on him or any leader for that matter, but just, again, rely on yourselves.
Yeah.
And I do think that's exactly where we're being pushed towards, right? And I'm not saying that Charlie obviously should have died. He shouldn't. But at the same time, he initiated something that makes people think now, and you can think, okay, but now we lost our leader. Or you can think, I'm going to pick up that, um, I don't know how you call that, you know, that
Torch.
that, that torch, and move on. And I do think this is about to happen right now.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. There is a lot of there's a lot of shifting. There has been a lot of shifting for many years, and it just seems like it goes more and more and more. So I definitely am hopeful. When I take a step back, it's very hard not to get that tunnel vision and get locked into the evil things going on in the world. But any of us that steps back and we're really being honest about the situation, I mean, it's polarized, right? It's not like we're seeing the evil get swept up and cleaned up or whatever. We're in some ways we're seeing more darkness than we've ever seen before.
Yes.
Um, but the fact that we haven't given up, I love it was the final line, I think, in the movie True Detective, where they were like talking about the stars in the sky. And I'm going to butcher it, but he's like, you look up into the sky, you see all this darkness, and you see these little pinpoints of light. And how do you know who's winning? And well, now never mind. I completely forgot what he said, but it was like basically something along the lines of the light always wins. The fact that the light even exists means that it's winning. Things naturally will gravitate towards the light.
Right.
But we also have to push it along if we want it to happen quickly. And I think a
Yeah,
lot of
but
us are getting impatient.
I do think, and this comes down to the dark night of the soul. So when we go through the dark night of the soul, we are being called to um, get out of our comfort zone. And we definitely are, as a collective, out of our comfort zone right now. And at the same time, you know, yeah, we're waiting for that moment of surrender where we're surrendering to what is, and then move on to make a difference ourselves and not rely on anything. It's all about looking in the mirror and looking at yourself. What can you do to change your life, but also other people's lives? And, eventually it all comes down to becoming service to others, and the good, becoming
Mhm.
service of good, rather than, yeah, relying on leaders, relying on, oh my God, who's going to solve the next problem, you know? Um, and that's also what I love. That I do think that what Erica did yesterday was incredibly powerful. If you see the words, I don't know where the heck she gets it from. Maybe because she is so devout Christian, such a devout Christian, but definitely there are things that I was thinking about and I was like, wow. Even saying like, I forgive the killer.
Mm.
Although whether he is really the killer or not, it really doesn't matter. The fact she can say that demonstrate that she is willing to take her own responsibility within her life. That, because at the end of the day, forgiving, you do not for somebody else, you do it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to be like in a dark place if you can't forgive somebody else.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand forgiveness. um, I even find it still difficult to understand, um, because we have emotions and raw emotions that go through it, and so then you want to get vengeance and stuff like that. I definitely do a lot of times. But she just said like, I forgive, and that moment I thought, oh my God, this is not about whomever she forgives. It's about so that she can just continue with her life without being um, full of spite and full of anger, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's faith. That is the faith that there is something bigger than this life. Because if you don't believe, if you think that this life is all there is, how could you
Right,
ever forgive anyone for killing the love of your life, the father of your children?
right,
It just wouldn't be possible. You have to have faith in something bigger than
right,
yourself. And for her it is Christianity, for some people it is other things. I have faith in, like, I feel very clear in what I believe. And
right,
it, to me, the whole purpose of it, and I could be wrong, I could be right, I don't know. I would never fight anybody on it and say that I have the truth and they don't, because it at the end of the day, it's just a belief. But
right,
it makes me able to do things like that, forgive people that harm me, because I look at it from the perspective of, okay, this life is just, what is the net gain from this? Like, what happened from this? Am I being forced to grow? Am I being forced to confront things in me that need to change? Um,
right,
and ultimately, I believe that I take that with me when I leave, because there is a bigger picture here. Otherwise, I
right.
would never be able to forgive.
Well, I found it interesting that, there are atheists. And I wonder, atheists never believe in anything. And then I'm like, that must be a really empty life, because that means you believe that you're born and then you die. So then what's the point of the whole of life in itself? And really, well, I'm not religious, you're not, but at the same time, not believing in anything at all is must be really depressing. It just came across my
I
mind.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But, remarkably, because I would think not having any kind of faith would make it really hard to be a good person, I guess. But I know many many atheists who are good people. They still live with a moral and ethical code.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's almost like there's a different there's a different thing for every person. Some people don't like this expression because of where it comes from, but it's a good one. There's milk for babies and meat for men. There's every kind of, um, not everybody is going to conform to the same beliefs, at least not anytime soon on this planet. And I don't believe ever, because I think humanity is meant to have a veil. I think that this earth, we are meant to come here and not know the answer. Because if we knew the answer, what would be the point? It's like
right,
having an open book test. Are you actually being tested? No. you don't know you don't know it in your heart. You just have the answer. So how could we ever truly have the truth while we are here on earth? I think hopefully we will have it outside of this. But
Right.
so to argue over religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs, I mean, maybe it just is that some things work for different people, and some people are adamant, like, no, this is the one thing. But that
Right.
kind of reminds me of like what I was saying the other day about part of the huge loss of Charlie Kirk's life was that we were finally starting, and we still are, um, but he was a huge part of us starting to finally win the culture war that we have lost for decades,
Right.
and getting the youth on board with, stepping outside of the status quo. And which is, the left has had our institutions, it's had our universities, it's had our schools, it's had entertainment and all the things that young people are dialed into. So that is why they've won the culture war. Well, Charlie Kirk was helping us win the culture war with young people. It was an incredible movement, and we have to do what we can to help push that forward. I see people saying, like, why aren't we there yet? Why aren't we there yet? But at the same time, using very divisive tactics on a wide world of people that are not all going to have the same religious beliefs. They're not all going to have the same politics. They're not. But if we want to win, we have to get them on our side to focus on collectively what the most important issues are and forget all of the other stuff.
Right.
Don't alienate people that we need to be on their to be on our side. Right now, we need people to
Yeah.
be on our side.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that too. And this is why, well, I love to watch Candace Owens. She's busy doing that, exactly that. Obviously, people are still going to hate her and whatnot, and that's fine. But I do absolutely believe what you're saying is true. We do need to come together, even in our differences. When it comes to religions and whatnot, I grew up with literally every religion in my family. um, Catholic, Protestant, um, what's the other ones? Um,
Hindu, Buddhist.
Hindu, Muslim, so obviously we've got this fight right now, and Muslims this and Christians that and Catholics that. And I'm like, really? I know all of them. And they all believe in something good. They all are, none of them are extremists, right? And so I do believe even in that we all need to come together. And because, I do see also a lot of Christians, if you're not Christian, then, F you. And I'm like, no, that's not okay. You need to respect everybody's beliefs, and just believe that, trust that it will be fine. It's not like the world won't crumble because somebody has a different belief. The world will crumble if we all want everybody to believe the same. you know
Yeah. I don't think we necessarily have to respect each other's beliefs, but we have to
no.
respect that they have them.
Right.
And as long as they are not using them to harm anyone, then what does
Exactly.
anybody care? You know,
Right.
judge them on their fruits, their actions. Are they
Yeah.
harming people? I don't care if it's because of your belief or not. I only care if you're harming people. Um,
Right. But that's the same discussion what I said about, people that come in my house that I meet, and then they turn out to be leftist, and then all shit hits the fan as soon as you start talking about it, right? And but that goes both ways, because I get triggered too. Don't get me wrong. It goes both ways. But and I do think about that now, and I'm thinking, before I knew they were on the left, I had no problem with them whatsoever. So why do we have a problem as soon as we start talking politics? Because, all these months we got along until we started talking politics. And that's kind of ridiculous if you think about it, right?
right.
And the other thing is, for example, the whole Green New Deal thing, right? Politics again. But I want nature to thrive. I want,
Right.
I want everything to be great in nature. It's not like I'm not green. I'm just not the different kind of green where they actually try to rob your money for it, right?
Exactly.
Well, we all can do something about it without having to cost money. And so, and that's with everything the same, right?
You know,
It's all a psyop.
you, exactly. The problem lies when we feel that whatever it is, whatever beliefs we conform to, that makes us corner the market on being a decent human being. And anyone who doesn't see things the way that we do hates the planet, hates, is a bigot, is a racist, is a
Yes.
this, is a that. That's where that comes from. It's not
Yeah.
because you guys are, all of a sudden feel contentious towards each other because you find out that you have different political beliefs. It's because that has already been preloaded with the fact that, like we were saying, that makes somebody, they're an advocate for evil.
Right.
And
Well,
it would just ruffle feathers.
another thing that I see a lot, especially from the US, because in Europe we don't have that as much, where everything is black and white, right? Skin colors, and they're talking, oh, white woman, and then it's like a white liberal woman or a white this woman, and oh, she's a white boomer, and I'm like, what the heck does it matter what color she has? You can have them in all different colors. And so we don't have that in Europe. Like we have Dutch blacks. We don't call them Dutch blacks. We call them Dutch. End of story, right? Because they were born here. And, we colonized half the world. So why would we call them something different if they are just like me, Dutch, right? And
Mm.
so in America, you actually have all these separations, right? American, African American, Latin American. It's, I mean, that in itself is a psyop because somebody can be born like for generations in the US, but yet because they look a certain way, all of a sudden you are, you know, not American. No, you're African American, you're Latin American, you're this and that. And that in itself, these wordings itself already make divides people. And so now I see a lot of sometimes I'm having a discussion on X, and then or I see other people having discussions and like, oh, you're such a white cat lady. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a white cat lady. So what do I need to be offended now because you have a quarrel with somebody who happens to like cats and happens to be white? So now it is a slur, right? And it's so appalling to see this, and I see it from the right as much as I see it from the left, and those are obviously all triggers, but we do need to really watch out what we say to people. And don't get me wrong, I fall for it myself, right? I do it too at times, but we do need to think about this and stop dividing people with words that literally have no meaning. White, black, yellow, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Every,
so
yeah,
yeah,
down the line,
everything
just
is
like,
about division. Every word is about division. Every word is a freaking slur these days.
yeah. And, like, even you, like, the talking about like being a vegan or I'm a meat eater, like that's a,
Yes.
now we've got two more subsets of people. Everything is just about like identifying each other. Like, oh, I
Right.
like this sports team and you like this sports team. Like, oh, now we have to hate each other, or now we have to fight in the parking lot because, whatever.
Right.
It really is stupid.
Well, that's very much an more American thing than anywhere else. Is this? I mean, it's such a division. Everything is so divisive. I'm not saying it's not in Europe divisive, but not that bad, right? And I do think it's done on purpose, obviously, in order to divide people even more. And whereas we all know somebody that's black and is a great person, we know everybody that's a vegan and is a great person, we all know a cat lady that's a great person, and but you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
so we really need to watch out what we say to people, and not make it a habit to use it as normal.
Yeah, because it's stupid. I mean, like, we learn these things in kindergarten. Treat people how you want to be treated. Do you want to be judged based on things that you have no control over? Of course
Right.
not. Nobody does. It's not right. You should judge people. you should judge them based on their character. Are they a moral, ethical person? Are they doing
Right.
the right thing or the wrong thing? And by the way, you can change your opinion on people when their actions change. Like somebody could be
Right.
an immoral, unethical person that's doing bad things, harmful things, and then they change. And then you say, you know what? My opinion of you changes. So it's all just based on that. But you made me think of another thing. I would, everything like just comes back to Tartaria and my favorite topic, that that was supposedly a country that took over most of the northern hemisphere into Asia, Russia, even into the United States. And it was supposedly a multicultural, multi-ethnic society. And you found that, they found, these ancient bones of Caucasians in Asia. And I actually think that that stage was possibly a lot more current than we would be led to believe. I think that that was possibly even towards the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 19th century, which is wild to think about because my grandmother was born, I think, in 1906, and she lived until she was almost 101.
Right.
And so she would have been alive kind of, when people who went through that great reset would have been alive. You know what I
But
mean? And
then, do you think that is like a collective amnesia or something that happened? Because, like the Hopi Indians, they still passing on information to each other after
well,
centuries. So
yeah.
then, why hasn't that information passed on
Well, I
to
mean, maybe the
everybody?
Hopi, like, if the Hopi civilizations that were living at that time, um, obviously were not connected to these civilizations. They were separate, they were compartmentalized. But I also think that that's part of the reason that Native American cultures and other cultures that pass down history by word of mouth are the most targeted, because you can burn
Right.
books, you can get rid of history easily by burning books, and in a generation or two things can be forgotten. I mean, we things have been forgotten even from when you and I were growing up.
Right.
So I don't really know, but also it ties into, look at all of these insane asylums that they had. I mean, and these were those big palace buildings all over, at least in the United States, all over were these huge, enormous, insane asylums. Why was everybody so crazy? Is this where they put the people where that we're talking about? No, this is not how it used to be. Sorry,
Right.
grandma, you got to go live in the assisted living facility. So I don't
Right.
know. I love that rabbit hole though, because
It
it's so
is.
interesting.
It definitely is interesting. I was in a clinic for phobias, and this clinic was so big. It was like a little village in itself, and there were a lot of, like, there were different houses, and each house had different patients. Right? I was in the phobia clinic because agoraphobia, but I did my rounds over there and walk there, and there were people that were psychotic, schizophrenic, borderline, name it, and it was there. And I actually found out that some people that we call absolutely insane, crazy, and I thought, when I was in there, I was like, these people, I think they're more normal than anybody outside there. So there was this guy, and he was schizophrenic, and but on the terrain we also had a graveyard, and it was so old that even trees were growing in it. It was really kind of like a horror movie kind of scene. It looked, even the sister of Van Gogh, the painter, was buried there,
Oh,
and that whole family was quite, well, that's what they say, right? And there was a museum in there as well, that showed what they would do to these people at the time. It was insane. I mean, literally making people probably crazier and
mm.
very sick. But anyway, I found this guy, and he was schizophrenic, and he walked around with a box. And I said, "What's in the box?" And he said, "Oh, that's a skull." And I'm like, "Did you go to the graveyard and dug up a skull?" And he said, "Yeah, I put it in the box." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because I give that other voice I have, that's the other voice I have. So I give it to that.
You
And I
couldn't get
was
like a
like,
Teddy Ruxpin or
and I was like, well, that kind of makes sense because you can separate that. And it made him more sane because now he could say, this is that, and I am that, right? And I was, and the stuff that came out of his mouth, and I was like, he's maybe not as crazy as I think he is, right?
well, I
And
mean, we would be considered crazy, you know, like even me talking about Tartaria and like saying that this version of history is not true. At one point, somebody could put you in an insane asylum over that. Or, I mean, like, look back in history, women that knew how to cure things with certain herbs got labeled witches because people
right.
didn't understand it. And it was like, oh no, burn the witch.
Well, what about the MK Ultra people, right? They are the crazy ones, but at the end, they're they're just programmed to do certain things and they don't even know about it because, that's what they can do. They have that technology these days. So, you know, I'm not going to say now that a lot of liberals are normal because they are insane and psychotic, some of them. But it's very interesting to see how fine the line is between somebody being crazy and somebody being absolutely normal. Um, but it's just what society wants and what society. I don't know if you remember when we went to school, people were our fellow, our peers were completely different. They wasn't cookie cutter. And then slowly they started making the cookie cutter students because you have ADHD, that one has autism, that one doesn't belong to the rest of them. We just go for the normal people, right? And
Yeah.
or normal kids. And so everybody became cookie cutter, and whatever wasn't fitting into what's normal, they all got the stamp of whatever
Yeah.
psychiatric disease is out there. And whereas when I was young and we were in school, I mean, everybody was different,
Yeah.
you know? Everybody was absolutely different. And that's not anymore these days because if you're different, you're going to get it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have a diagnosis for everything, you know,
Yeah,
and um I don't know. I don't know. Like I try to look at the world from just in my lifetime, like what has changed and what is different. I do think a lot about my childhood and um, how race was not something that people led with. And it didn't, I don't feel like that's progress. I don't feel like we've progressed by making everything about race. I think it's better to teach kids that it's no more important than eye color, you know?
right,
Um, that's how you steer it the right way. Obviously, if there are, you know, bigots and whatever that exist, it I don't know. I feel like we've gone backwards in a lot of that stuff, and quite frankly, I think obviously it's intentional that we are
right.
being divided on purpose, that they made everything about race to pit us against each other, and also to make people feel unsafe. I mean, I think the worst victims of that have been children growing up thinking that the world hates them because of their skin color.
Right.
Um, and
Yeah.
it's sick.
It is. Well, and the same with the labels, right? I mean, well, now it's a badge of honor, I have ADHD, I have autism, I have this, I
Yeah.
have that. But before it was, oh my God, you have ADHD. And so it slowly just came onto the surface. Whereas before, when I was young, I'm a Gen Xer, I mean, nobody cared about that stuff. I mean, Frankie was just different, and that's it. And Frankie was okay. But now Frankie is ADHD, autism, and different. And so he doesn't belong in the group.
I was watching, I don't know if this was a big show in the US. Um, Ally McBeal.
Yes.
Okay. I have been watching Ally McBeal, like in the background. And, you know, that takes me back to high school and college, I think. is when we used to watch that. My friend Mike used to have pajama jammy jams, and we would put our pajamas on. We would watch Ally McBeal. Anyway, it's a great show, and it's like lightly philosophical, but I was realizing that God, there are two partners at the firm, and not the sleazy one, but the other guy. He is autistic, but they never call him autistic, but you can tell, like, he has some of these like symptoms, like somebody will ask him a question, instead of answering them, he like hums a song. You're like, do, 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 do. He's one of the best characters. He's so charming. He's so cool. And it's not like, you know, he was just different. You didn't think of him as the autistic character. You thought of him as he was just quirky.
Yes,
right?
Yes. That's it. It was actually, it had a charm, and it gave, that's what diversity is, not the diversity they use today as, you know, in race and whatnot, but as minorities. No, that was the diversity, and it was a welcoming diversity, because it made everything so much more fun to have one of those quirky guys right in the middle of your friends group, right? I mean, because they stood out, and it was celebrated. And now it's, you know, oh, it has to have a label, because once it has a label, you're going to be, am I belonging there or don't I belong there? And so division, everything is about division, and we're all massively falling for it, not just in the US. I mean, here it's the same when it comes to that. The school kids and this and that, everybody's on, you know, some kind of meds, because, you know, they've been imprinted that they have a disorder. There's no such thing as a disorder when it comes to ADHD or autism or quirkiness or whatever stamp you want to give on it. It's about, you know, people being accepted for who they are. And
well,
so,
I mean, there are definitely there are levels to it that go deeper than that. People that do need treatment, that do need, you know, they're not just quirky. They have difficulties, they have disabilities, they have, you know, they do need help. They do need to be
yeah, but that would be a 1 in 100. Now it's like 50-50 almost.
Right. Well, exactly. But exactly. And so what is causing that? You're not allowed to look in in certain directions when it comes to answering that question. Right. I heard somebody the other day point out how, like, I wonder if the movie Rain Man was like prepping the consciousness for autism.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that there is something to that.
Absolutely. I mean, medication as well, right? Pushing the medications is another reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's actually literally two birds, one stone. It's pushing medications, which costs, you know, makes them money, but at the same time creating division, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, I know we talked about all kinds of things today.
Yeah, we went through a rabbit hole from left to right.
I know, but these conversations are, you know, I love this stuff. I just love talking about it because I think it's healing. And I know that I feel better. I know that I feel better after we have these discussions. Actually, that was on Ally McBeal last night. They were talking about, I could go into all the things on Ally McBeal.
You can do a whole episode on Ally McBeal if you want. I mean, I love that the chat is interacting a lot, and I love that because, you know, you guys make me think as well. But yeah, we should do this more often. But go ahead, tell me your other thing from Ally McBeal.
Oh, I don't remember what it was. Oh, well, they were talking about how it doesn't matter. It would be a whole lot of words and really what I just want to say is that we do better when we discuss things because it's a release. And so chatting with each other, and I mean, you and I know that we've got the market cornered on that. You and I have been really good at being there for each other and talking. And I thank God for you all the time that I've had that, you know, and not everybody has a friendship like that. And so it's part of the reason why you and I are here, so that people can be a part of these discussions and help them
Yeah.
heal.
Yeah, maybe we should switch from Dark Night of the Soul, just having conversations like this, because they're fun and they are eye-opening, and there's always somebody chipping in as well in the chat that can, you know, just spark a conversation that is so interesting, because I do love that.
But I think it's part of the dark night of the soul, because the dark night of the
Yes,
soul isn't all just about, it's not just depressing. It's about how you get on the other side of that, and how, and a big way
true.
that you get on the other side of that is by leaning on other people and being able to discuss these things free from having others judge, put their own beliefs, shove their beliefs down your throat, whatever. We can kind of get through it together, because yes, we're going through it individually, but we're also going through it collectively. And more people are going to be going through it. People that have already been through it are going to go through it again. It is just something, it is just part of being a human being. It's part of the human experience. Maybe not for everybody, because maybe not everybody is here for the same amount of growth.
True, but then those people wouldn't be watching.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like people are drawn to what they are
Right.
for a reason, and if you don't feel, you might land on a show. I do this all the time, and I'll listen to it a little bit and I'll be like, no, this isn't for me. And I turn it off.
I mean, this is my friend actually. She's Dutch, and she's saying as well, I never watched Wayne's World. I don't even know it. Do you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It was
I
huge
never
here.
watched.
It started as it was a skit on SNL, and then they made it into a movie, but it was very culturally huge here.
I need to start watching. So yes, thank you, Texan. So if you guys want a topic that we are going to talk about, well, Tartaria is going to be next week then. Because we can't
Dude,
find any guests that want to come out the closet of their dark night of the soul. I
right.
mean, few people that we can find that want to just spill their guts about what they went through. And I do think that's still important. And if we do have the guest, then we will talk about it. But I do think in the meantime, we can actually talk about these things, can we?
It's all connected, baby. We can talk about whatever we want. I mean,
Right.
it is all connected, and things end up being whatever they should have been anyway. You don't ever have to force it. I mean, that's always why I've been like hesitant. I have done shows where it's a certain theme or a certain whatever every week, and then you're like, well, shit, what happens if that dries up? We're never going to run out of things to talk about. And at the end
No,
of the day, like I said, it is all connected anyway.
it
There is a spiritual undulation, and some of it's really dark and some of it's awesome. And any rabbit hole we go down tends to lead to the same place anyway. And that's why it's really cool. That's why people can start in any area and they all kind of land in the same place, because there are many avenues to the truth. So,
yes.
yeah.
Well, I think we can go through a lot of rabbit holes. I mean, yeah, you and I are never finished talking anyway. I mean,
Right.
we can go on for hours and hours if we want to, but let's save it for next week.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know?
I would love to do a Tartaria dig, and
Yes.
there's actually a thread that I've been working on. When I say I've been working on it, I mean, like, I started it a month ago and then I abandoned it, and then I went back and I kind of worked on it a little bit. But it's a pretty awesome thread about Nikola Tesla. I think that stuff is so important for us to know, because we need to understand our true history so that we don't repeat the bad parts.
Yes. Actually, I do want to talk about, although I haven't dived in it. I didn't dove in it.
Oh, I haven't dove into it.
I haven't dove in it to it. Is what they found under the pyramids.
Oh yeah, those tunnels or whatever,
Yeah, the
cylinders.
columns or whatever they are. So we should actually go in there, because I know it's all related as well to Nikola Tesla's work. A lot of what happened with the pyramids, or what they were meant for. But yeah, I mean, hey, Nikola Tesla always, right?
Oh, always. When they animated with that picture of him, I probably watched it on loop, not to make myself sound like a sicko. I probably watched it on loop like 16 times in a row. It was just like, he lives. I love him. I mean,
Yeah.
I think because he wasn't just brilliant, he was a true humanitarian. And I think he was a really great example of, um, I think he was just
Well,
a great example as a guy, as a person.
yeah, he didn't like people much, but he did have a pigeon.
I
That's
get
another
that.
thing.
I
I
get
mean, the
it was a
pigeon
dove.
thing. I actually made a post about pigeons, which was so interesting. I'm just going to tell that before we're going to close off anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it was about, that we use pigeons as pets in the old days because pigeons were also our mailmen.
Mhm.
They would send messages, not just in wars, but even before that, right? And we worship is maybe a big word, but we would love them and we would take care of them and we would feed them and we would keep them as pets and everything, right? And now we see them as city rats. And did you know that pigeons, and I do think Nikola Tesla knew this, that pigeons are so much so domesticated by humans that they don't even know how to live in the wild and how not to live without us. And so for us to treat them that the way that they are being treated and called whatever they are right now, which is city rats, um, and I sometimes, actually daily, I look at a pigeon and I'm thinking, once you were actually so respected by us because we
Mm.
needed you. And now you're just thrown to the trash. And, now you're a nuisance. And I do think that's why I love that Nikola Tesla had a pigeon as well, because he knew that. And I know that's, completely off topic, but I just wanted to mention that because there are so many of these things that we today spit on, whereas before, that was what we absolutely respected. And I don't think it's only about a pigeon, it's about so many other things in our lives that we forgot about.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I've seen I don't know. That has been used against him to make him sound crazy. They tell people that he believed that it was the soul of his soulmate
Right,
was in it was actually a dove. It wasn't a pigeon. It was a dove. But he used to feed the pigeons and the doves. He used to buy
right.
peanuts for them. Um And so, I mean, who knows? That's the thing. Like, look how people get demonized and what people say, even while you're still freaking alive. Imagine what they do to you after you're dead to make you sound like you're a weirdo or that
Yeah,
there was a screw loose. But honestly, if you think about if you're an advanced soul, I mean, I would imagine that staying away from humanity would be a pretty good idea. It's almost um,
that's what I do.
like like to get into all of these karmic ties with people, even to have friendships, it's very difficult because people will do you dirty, and then now you've got
Right.
this like karmic, you know, bleh with them. And so I feel like maybe he was here to do a specific job and he was like, I don't want all that entanglement. I don't want to be, or maybe it was partially because he was through his success and because of his brain and he was being well funded in the beginning, he was probably thrown into these social circles that were kind of evil, or
Yeah,
extremely evil. So he was probably like, I don't want anything to do with any of you. I'm just going to be a hermit and I'm going to stick to my work and I'm not going to,
right.
you know,
Well,
whatever.
yeah, and at that time, that was the change of the world, right? As in economic, it became all about money, and so obviously he retreated from the world, if he ever was in the world to begin with, because his brain was freaking amazing. So who needs people if you have a brain like that,
Right. Well,
right?
I mean, it was during the time of the scientific revolution where you
Right.
had, I mean, scientists used to be men in their, garages tinkering around with things and coming up with inventions. It was tangible. It was, and then it started to go into the institutions. And then now you had to have
Yeah.
patents for things. And now everything has to be, agreed upon. And it was really how they took over science. That's actually has a lot to do with the thread that I was working on. So maybe I'll continue to do that. Maybe I'll do that, and then maybe that'll be kind of like our segue next week into whatever.
Yes,
I mean,
let's
listen,
do that.
listen. Like as soon as we start talking about this stuff, the chat starts going crazy. I feel like you and I light up. This is stuff that is fun.
Right. Yes, thank you, Rose. I do believe that. I think every animal does. Um,
Thank you to Rhonda Larson. She says pyramids would be so interesting. Definitely more to know than we have been taught. It's Sunshine, by the way. Oh, hi, friends. Yes. Maybe come on and talk to us, talk with us about that if you want to. I also want to say thank you to Ohio Kimmy over on pill.net and also Sean Joe. Thank you guys
yes,
so much.
me too. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie there. And well, thank you everybody for coming. Let me quickly. Oh, I almost gave a rate to the wrong person. A
That's okay.
very wrong person.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just looking for somebody to rate.
You have to teach me how to
Oh
do
my
that.
god, that was almost another bad person.
Maybe don't follow the bad people. Or
I
do you not?
don't. No, that's impilled. You have no choice. You see them all, everybody that's live.
Oh, really?
You know how that is, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm not gonna rate anybody. I can't. Because
You
I
have to,
don't even know who I know. Who is who?
yeah,
But
go in with a plan next time
yeah, yeah.
so that you're
Anyway,
prepared. All
I
right.
do want to thank. Is that mine or is that yours? That's mine, actually. Yeah, I want to thank Just in Case Friend for the subscriptions that you gave.
Yes,
And
thank you.
I see you all there in the chat, by the way. Thank you for coming. And also in YouTube, Alexandra, good to see you. And Sanaya Yusufia, good to see you. And Claudette. Anyway, thank you for coming, everybody. And also in Kate's chat.
Yes. Love you guys. See you next week.
See you
Bye.
next week.